chosen one, listen carefully. Heaven has pressed pause on everything around you to deliver this word directly to your spirit. You are not here by chance. You are not watching this by accident. This moment is part of a divine timeline, and now the hour has come. When heaven makes its verdict known concerning you, you have suffered quietly. You have lost things you didn't deserve to lose. You have been betrayed by those you gave everything to. You have walked through seasons of delay, rejection, and being misunderstood. You tried to explain, but they twisted your words. You tried to hold on, but the weight became unbearable. Still, you remained standing. You didn't crumble. You didn't quit. You didn't curse the process. And now, the court of heaven has spoken. The gavel has fallen. The case is closed. What was stolen must be returned. This is not empty religious talk. This is not feel-good fluff. This is a legal declaration. In the spirit realm, there exists a courtroom higher than any human institution, where the judge is not biased, not blind, and cannot be bribed. He sees everything. He judges in truth. And this judge has ruled in your favor. The evidence presented was your pain, your endurance, your nights of silence, your tears, your restraint when you had every reason to lash out, your loyalty when others were deceptive, and the final ruling was enough has been taken. Now, it must be returned with interest. There are moments when heaven intervenes and releases a spiritual shift. This is one of those moments. You are standing at the edge of a divine reversal. The season of hidden pain is ending. The season of visible restoration is beginning. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. You have waited long enough, and because you waited with humility, not pride, not vengeance, God is lifting you higher than before. What broke you is now breaking open doors. What emptied you is now making room for overflow. The very ones who benefited from your pain, who used you, manipulated you, and cast you aside, will now have to witness your restoration, not out of spite, but as a sign that God defends you, that heaven does not forget you, that spiritual law always overrides earthly systems. And here's the mystery: the longer the delay, the greater the recompense. The more severe the loss, the more abundant the return. That's not just encouragement, that's spiritual principle. God never allows anything to be stolen without attaching a law of return. This is the moment where your spirit begins to feel what your eyes haven't yet seen. Something is shifting. Something is being returned. Something is being corrected in your name. You are not being restored to where you were. You are being elevated beyond it. This is not about going back. This is about rising into what was always yours but was delayed by spiritual interference, human betrayal, or generational resistance. And now, even creation is cooperating with your comeback. But don't be surprised if resistance shows up again. When heaven rules in your favor, hell often tries to distract. Stay focused. The verdict has been signed. You don't need to fight for what's already been granted. All you need to do now is align your spirit to receive it. You are not powerless, you are not lost, and you are not late. You are in divine timing. You are hearing this because your restoration was scheduled long before the damage ever occurred. This message is a summons, not an opinion. You are not hearing a theory, you are hearing the unfolding of a prophecy. This is the moment when you move from merely surviving to legally possessing. From praying for breakthrough to walking in what's already been ruled yours. So respond, not with emotion, but with alignment. Like this message, if your spirit bears witness, share it with someone else who needs to know that heaven still moves. And if you haven't subscribed, do so not because of the algorithm, but because you know this is a place where your spirit is being confirmed and awakened. And above all, Seal this moment. Chosen one. Comment the number 111 below 111. This is the number of divine alignment, new beginnings, holy agreement. You are not cursed. You are chosen. And this is the beginning of your payback. Every time you sensed something wasn't right, even when others told you it was all in your head, you weren't wrong. Your spirit knew. Your heart detected the shift. You could feel the betrayal in the silence, the theft behind the smiles, the spiritual imbalance in rooms where you were treated like nothing. What they thought was subtle, God saw. A wicked strategy against one of his chosen ones. You were not paranoid, you were discerning. And your discernment became the evidence heaven used to defend you. They didn't just take your money, they took your time, your peace, your name. They stole your access, your opportunity, your visibility, your connections, your confidence. And still you gave more. Still you stayed hopeful. Still you believed that maybe things would shift if you just loved harder, forgave faster, or stayed longer. But that wasn't what the situation needed. That's not what the divine court needed. Heaven needed you to survive long enough to testify not with your mouth, but with your endurance. Your ability to remain pure in the face of defilement became your legal advantage. When they cursed you, you prayed. When they slandered you, you held your tongue. When they tried to humiliate you, you walked in dignity. You were the vessel of light in rooms filled with compromise. You carried truth where manipulation reigned. And though it cost you, that cost became your crown. That loss became your leverage. That heartbreak became heaven's case file against the enemy. Every moment you questioned your worth, your purpose, your direction, it was recorded. Not one moment of doubt passed unnoticed. Not one cry was wasted. Even the days you felt too numb to pray were counted as intercession. Because your pain spoke louder than words ever could. You didn't just go through that for nothing. There was a legal exchange happening. Earth may have seen it as a breakdown, but heaven recorded it as a buildup, a case being built, an AIC being prepared, and now the verdict has been released. The gavel has fallen, the judge has ruled, and what you lost is being demanded back. Heaven does not restore casually. It restores legally. It restores completely. It restores with honor. It was never just about the money. The money was the surface, but beneath it were layers of loss, layers of what they took from you. You were robbed of rest. You were robbed of clarity. You were robbed of feeling safe in your own skin. But heaven is not only restoring your finances, it's restoring your sense of self. It's restoring your voice, your discernment, your balance. It's restoring everything the trauma fractured. You may not see it yet, but the cracks are forming in the enemy's structure. The silence of those who hurt you is not peace. It's panic. Heaven has issued summonses in the spirit, and they are feeling the tremors. The energy is shifting. The reversal is real. For so long, you felt like the one who carried more than most, the one who got the short end of every deal, the one who paid full price for people who barely gave you half the effort. But now, you are about to see how God vindicates those who don't retaliate. You see, the world teaches revenge, but heaven rewards restraint every time. You could have clapped back, but you chose silence. It counted. Every time you could have exposed them but let God handle it. It counted. Every time you humbled yourself and let someone else take credit. It counted. And now, the scales are shifting in your direction. What was once imbalance is becoming justice. What was once confusion is becoming clarity. What was once theft is becoming overflow. You thought you were just trying to survive, but in truth, you were being refined not to be but to be sharp. You were being positioned not for pity, but for power. God has been watching the entire time, not only what they did, but how you endured, Ask ChatGPT. But how you responded, chosen one. And because you chose alignment over ego, trust over manipulation, humility over revenge now, you stand on the path of holy restoration. But know this restoration doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes, the people who wronged you will never say sorry. They will not apologize. They will not acknowledge what they did. But God will make it so. Their systems can't function anymore unless they release what they owe, the spiritual blockages they're experiencing. That's heaven closing doors until justice is served. You don't need them to repent to get what's rightfully yours. Repentance is for their soul. Restoration is your portion. And it is not dependent on their confession. It has already been signed off in heaven's court. Sometimes, the healing you need doesn't come from hearing the words, "I'm sorry." It comes from hearing God say, "I saw everything." And He did. He saw everything. He saw how you prayed for them, even while they mocked you. He saw how you gave when you barely had enough. He saw how you stayed loyal while they were double-minded. And that seeing it has now turned into action. This season is not about you trying harder, it's about receiving more clearly because the shift is already underway. You don't need to manufacture it. Just stay positioned. Don't lose heart just because your natural eyes haven't caught up to what your spirit already knows. Your spirit knows something has changed. The verdict has been written. The enforcement is active. The return has begun. They thought they buried you. What they didn't know is that you were being planted, chosen one. When you are marked by God, your story doesn't end in the valley. It may begin there. It may even linger there longer than seems fair, but it will not end there. Divine justice doesn't forget seeds sown in suffering. It multiplies them. You weren't just surviving betrayal. You were sowing spiritual equity. Every silent moment where you didn't defend yourself. That was investment. Every tear you shed in secret, that was spiritual currency. Every time you let someone walk away without trying to make them stay, trusting that God would bring what's meant for you. That was kingdom trust, and trust like that never returns void. This is what people don't understand about you. They see the surface, but they don't know the sacrifice. They don't know what it took for you to keep smiling, to keep working, to keep showing up when every part of you wanted to disappear. They don't know the cost, but heaven does. And heaven has moved on your behalf. You are about to see what it looks like when divine law goes to work. This isn't revenge. This is order being restored. Justice isn't about punishment, it's about setting things right. And God is setting the record straight in your name. For too long, you felt like the one always giving while others only took. You didn't just give time. You gave loyalty. You didn't just give support. You gave pieces of your soul. You held space for others while no one held space for you. But now, heaven is holding space for you, and not just space, favor, opportunity, compensation. The reversal has already started. You'll see it in ways both small and undeniable. The very people who once dismissed you will now need what you carry. The very spaces that excluded you will be shaken open. You were never made to beg for a seat at tables that weren't built for your kind of royalty. God is building a table for you now, and when you sit at it, no one will be able to say that you forced your way there. It will be clear that it was grace that carried you, grace that vindicated you, grace that elevated you. And when you walk into your restoration, it will not just be a reward, it will be a testimony, a living proof that what was meant to destroy you was only the seed that planted your rise. Chosen one, this was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving God right. And now, there are some people who are about to be confused by your next season. They'll wonder how you went from invisible to undeniable, from barely enough to more than enough, from the one they wished would fall to the one they can't stop watching. That's what happens when restoration is public. And yes, this restoration will be public because your pain was public. The rumors were public. The disrespect was public. So now, your elevation will not be hidden. Your increase will not be subtle. Your redemption will not be quiet. It will be seen. And it will be undeniable. But don't get distracted by the noise. Keep your heart soft. Keep your focus sharp, because this is not the time to gloat. This is the time to gather, to prepare, to expand your capacity for everything that's coming, because it's not just material, it's spiritual, it's generational. There are chains being broken through your breakthrough. Doors are being opened that your bloodline has never walked through. There are curses being shattered simply because you refused to bow. You didn't repeat their patterns. You chose the harder path, the lonelier path. And that path has now become your launching ground. There's a weight of glory settling on your name. You can feel it in the shift around you. Conversations changing, people circling back, opportunities reappearing. Things you forgot about suddenly resurfacing with new favor on them. That's not random. That's heaven, breathing on your timeline. And what's coming next will confirm what your spirit already knew. You didn't miss your moment. You were being hidden for it. And now, it's here. So don't shrink. Don't apologize for the favor. Don't explain the increase. Walk in it. You paid for this oil. You walked through fire for this wisdom. You cried for this clarity. This restoration is your legal right, and you will not be denied. If you receive it, comment below. Say these words to claim what heaven has already ruled your time. Your peace, your name, your portion, it's yours again. They laughed while you bled. They celebrated while you were quietly breaking. They moved on like nothing happened, like your loyalty meant nothing, like your sacrifices were disposable. And in those moments, you wondered, would justice ever come? Was heaven really watching? Would God ever respond? Now you know the silence of heaven was not absence. It was strategy. Heaven does not always respond when the wound is fresh. Sometimes it waits until the wound becomes a witness, until the betrayal matures into evidence, until the pain no longer screams, but testifies. Because when heaven moves, it doesn't move out of emotion. It moves by eternal timing, and that timing has come. This is the hour when the hidden things are being exposed, not by your hand, not by vengeance, but by divine exposure. Not because you shouted your truth louder than their lies, but because truth has a sound that cannot be silenced. And now that sound is rising. Those who rejoiced while you wept, they forgot that heaven was recording it all. The moments when they smiled while you suffered, when they twisted your story to protect their own, when they positioned themselves as victims while you bore the weight of silence. Those moments have reached the court of heaven, and the gavel has fallen. There are consequences in motion now, not from bitterness, but from balance, not from rage, but from righteousness. Because divine justice is not fueled by anger. It is born from love, love for truth, love for order, love for the one who kept walking in light. Even when darkness seemed to win, this is not about shaming your enemies. It's about restoring your name, about lifting what was lowered, about revealing what was hidden, about rewarding what was pure. You never asked for much, just honesty, just loyalty, just peace. And now, heaven is answering your heart's cry. Your story is not over. Chosen one, it is just beginning. But what you gave was far more than what you received. Heaven saw the imbalance. The divine scale had been tilted too far for too long. but now it is leveling. And as it does, what was stolen will return pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Some of them thought they escaped, thought time had erased their responsibility, thought silence was safety. But time does not erase divine memory in the spiritual realm. Time doesn't decay evidence, it sharpens it. And now, every silent wound you carried is speaking louder than ever. You don't need to explain anymore. You don't need to fight for clarity. You don't need to chase truth with your own hands. The truth is moving on its own. Now it's walking into rooms you no longer occupy. It's showing up in conversations you'll never hear. It is reaching ears that once refused to believe you. And it's doing the work you no longer have to. You were never meant to prove your innocence. You were meant to carry your integrity and let time and truth do the proving. And now they are. This is why your path was so heavy, why your battles felt unfair. You weren't just fighting for yourself. You were fighting to keep your name from being twisted into a lie, to keep your heart from turning to stone, to keep your spirit open when every wound tried to shut it down. But look at you now, still soft, still standing, still here, still chosen. This is not just vindication. This is divine reversal, a full circle moment designed by heaven to remind everyone and especially you, that justice may be slow in the natural, but it is always certain in the spirit. There's a kind of restoration that only comes after loss, a kind of reward that only arrives when the world counted you out. And that's the kind you are walking into now. You won't have to defend yourself anymore. What's coming will speak louder than your words ever could, not to make them feel bad, but to make you whole. Because that's what this is really about, wholeness. Not just getting back what was taken, but receiving what you didn't even know you were owed. Peace you forgot existed, joy you thought had died, a new rhythm for your life that doesn't include survival mode, a new clarity where confusion used to live. You are about to breathe again, not because the people changed, but because you did. You are no longer looking for closure. You are no longer seeking validation. You are no longer entertaining explanations. You have walked through fire, and now your spirit is gold. You have been pressed, and now you carry oil. You have been hidden, and now you carry weight. This restoration is not payback, it's resurrection. The part of you they tried to silence is being raised up. The part of you they mocked is being honored. The version of you they couldn't see is now undeniable. You are not what they did to you. You are what heaven always said you were. Justice begins with a whisper, but when it comes, it echoes. You are in that echo now. Things are moving around you even when you can't see them clearly yet. Conversations are shifting. People are feeling unsettled around you not because you've changed, but because your spirit is no longer tolerating what used to be normal. And you can feel it too. The air around your life is different. Something is unfolding, slowly but with power. That's what happens when heaven speaks. This is the beginning of divine enforcement. The ruling has been made in the spirit, and now the execution is unfolding in the natural. God's word does not return void. When he declares restoration, he does not mean a piece of what you lost. He means all of it and more. And now, the energy of your life is matching the verdict of heaven. You'll start to notice strange things. The ones who tried to silence you will become uncomfortable in your presence, not because you are loud, but because your peace has volume. The ones who tried to limit you will begin losing access to you, not because you are bitter, but because your atmosphere no longer allows the old to stay. You are becoming what you were always meant to be, not by force, not by striving, but by alignment. You are walking in the power of quiet authority. You are stepping into rooms not because you asked, but because the door opened for you without a knock. That's what heaven does. When justice is in motion, it lifts you beyond explanation. And with every step forward, you are shaking the ground beneath what once tried to bury you. Chosen one, you are not going back to who you were. You are not returning to the version of yourself that tolerated smallness, confusion, or dishonor. You are becoming new, and with that, everything around you must shift. The circle is changing. The atmosphere is clearing. The cycles are breaking, not because of luck, but because you finally stood still long enough to let heaven fight for you, and now you are starting to feel it. The pull of restoration. It's not just about receiving, it's about remembering who you are. You are remembering that you don't have to beg to be chosen. You already were. You don't have to prove your worth. It was settled long ago. You don't have to match energy, you are energy. You don't have to chase because what's yours cannot pass you. So much has already shifted and there's more coming. But hear this, don't walk into your new season alone. Carry this truth with you and share it boldly. There are others like you chosen, tired, misunderstood who are still in their valley, still doubting. The verdict has been made. They need to hear what you've just heard. They need confirmation that their case has been reviewed, that their pain has been outed, that justice is already in motion for them too. So don't keep this to yourself. Share the message. And if your spirit has been stirred, if your clarity is returning, if you know this word was for you, support the space where this message found you. Subscribe, not out of obligation, but because your soul recognizes this is holy ground. Like it because it agrees with your spirit. And if you are led, consider giving not as payment but as participation. When you sow into what speaks to your soul, you come into deeper alignment with its truth. Not every voice online speaks to the chosen, but this one found you. And if it found you, it's because your spirit was ready. This is not just content, this is confirmation. Because this journey isn't about building a following, it's about building a remnant, a people who remember who they are, a people who refuse to bow to injustice, a people who walk in restoration as a spiritual right, not a privilege. You are one of them, and this moment is a turning point. The way you used to shrink, that version is gone. The way you used to explain yourself just to be understood, gone. The way you tried to hold space for people who only emptied you, gone. You are no longer available for anything that contradicts your anointing. This shift is permanent, so take a deep breath. Pay attention to the signs. Trust the quiet pull of restoration because it's real. The world around you might still be adjusting, but your spirit already knows you are in motion, not forward in fear, but forward in faith. And justice is walking with you now. Something is unlocking right now, not in your bank account first, but in your spirit. The restoration of finances is coming. Yes, but heaven is dealing with something deeper first. The root, the foundation, the very core of what was fractured when the betrayal happened. Because when people stole from you, they didn't just take possessions, they tampered with your peace, your confidence, your identity. And before the money is returned, God is restoring you. This is divine protocol. Heaven always heals the root before releasing the fruit. And right now, healing is flowing back to places in you that haven't felt whole in years. Places where shame used to live. Places where silence used to speak louder than hope. Places where you stopped dreaming because it felt safer to expect nothing at all. But you weren't created to live small. You weren't built for spiritual survival mode. You were designed to operate in divine fullness, and now, the process has begun. The gavel didn't just fall to restore your finances, it fell to realign your soul, to call back every part of you that dimmed itself to survive in dark places, to reignite the fire that got buried under heartbreak and confusion, to return clarity to a mind that was tormented by injustice and abandonment. This restoration isn't just happening to you. It's happening in you. You are going to start seeing it in small moments first, in the way your thoughts shift, in the way your energy changes around certain people, in the way your dreams return. That's not just maturity. That's the fruit of spiritual healing. You are stepping out of the fog, that thick haze of delay, doubt, and spiritual fatigue is lifting because the ruling of heaven doesn't just move angels, it awakens your anointing. And your anointing has been waiting for this moment. You can feel it, can't you? Something inside of you is standing up again. Not the version of you that was just trying to survive, but the version that was chosen before the pain ever came. The version that God always saw, even when others overlooked you. The version that carries oil, not bitterness, fire, not frustration, royalty, not rejection. This is the you that was buried under years of being misunderstood. The you that was quieted in rooms where your voice carried too much power. The you that learned to tone it down so others wouldn't feel threatened. But you don't need to shrink anymore. The silence that once felt like protection has become a prison. And now heaven has shattered the cell. You're walking out, not just with freedom, but with legal authority. What was once used against you is now speaking for you. What once disqualified you is now qualifying you in the eyes of heaven, because the court has ruled and now the enemy has to pay. There is no escape, no appeal. What was taken has been recorded, and the ruling is clear. It must be returned. Not in fragments, but in full. That includes your confidence, your voice, your time, your joy, your trust, and yes, your resources, money that was lost through betrayal, sabotage, manipulation, and spiritual robbery is coming back because spiritual law demands it. Proverbs says, when the thief is caught, he must repay sevenfold. And that principle is now active in your life. You may not know how the return will come, but you don't need to. Your job isn't to trace it, it's to trust it. God doesn't need your strategy. He needs your agreement. And right now, you are being invited to agree not just with your mind, but with your spirit, with your posture, with your awareness that something holy is unfolding, and it's wrapped around your name. This restoration isn't random. It is personal. Tailor-made for you. It's designed to touch the exact places you lost and bring them back better than they were before, because heaven doesn't return what was stolen in the same condition it left. Heaven restores with glory. That's why it took time. That's why it was quiet for so long, because God was building something behind the scenes that would make the return worth it. Now, it's here. You can feel it in your spirit, that quiet knowing, that deep assurance that the delay has lifted, the drought has ended, the grief has run its course. So let your spirit come into full agreement. Type the number 999 in the comments, not as superstition, but as prophecy. 999 is heaven's sign of completion. It marks the close of the old cycle, the final strike of the gavel, the end of stolen seasons. It declares that what was held back is now released. Let that number speak for your alignment, your agreement, and your readiness to receive. This is your return. You are not cursed. You never were. Life, pain, and the voices of others tried to convince you otherwise. They told you something was wrong with you, that you were unlucky, unstable, too sensitive, too much, or not enough. They pointed to your struggle as proof of some hidden flaw when, in truth, your resistance was the evidence of your calling. You were never cursed. You were carrying the weight of generations. There are burdens you felt that didn't begin with you, patterns that chased your family line, cycles that repeated with precision betrayal, silence, sickness, emotional abandonment, and when you showed up on the scene, everything in the spirit realm shifted. You weren't just another member of the bloodline, you were the interruption. That's why the warfare has been so heavy. Because your breakthrough is not just about you. It's about the ones who came before you and the ones who will come after. And now, the curse has been broken. Heaven didn't just rule on your personal behalf, it ruled over your lineage. What limited your parents will not limit you. What drained your grandparents will not drain you. What silenced generations before you will not steal your voice. You were born for this exact moment, the moment where the chain finally snaps. They called it personality. They called it bad luck. They called it coincidence. But in the spirit, it was a curse, an ancient agreement that operated without permission until someone righteous enough, awake enough, and bold enough stood up and said, "It stops. Here you are." That someone. You don't need another prophet to confirm it. You don't need another sign in the sky. Look at your life. The battle you faced proves the mantle you carry. The pain didn't come because you were weak. It came because you were chosen to end what others didn't have the strength to confront. And now, the verdict has been rendered. The curse has no more legal ground. The darkness has no more grip. The thief has no more access. Restoration is not just about recovering what was lost. It's about deeming what was never claimed. You are about to experience blessings that your ancestors prayed for, but never saw. Their cries didn't vanish. They were stored. And now, you are the one who will walk in the answers they never lived long enough to touch. You are not just a survivor. You are a fulfillment, and with that comes responsibility to no longer live like someone waiting to be rescued. You are not in bondage anymore. The prison doors have been opened. The sentence has been lifted. You are no longer under accusation. You are under favor, but walking in favor requires a shift in posture. You can no longer act like the rejected one. You can no longer shrink around small-minded people just to keep the peace. You can no longer pretend not to see what God is doing in you and around you. This is your time to stand tall, to walk in the fullness of the restoration that has been granted to you, and to embrace all that God has called you to be. Through you, you were made for restoration. You were designed for increase. Your name was built to carry weight. You were never cursed. You were chosen for compensation. And compensation is not just payment. It's public reversal. It's spiritual honor. It's a weight of blessing that not only lifts you, but lifts everyone connected to you. It reverses the mockery. It clears the fog. It silences the lies. It rebuilds what was torn down. You'll feel it first in the clarity that returns to your mind, the sense that you no longer need to explain your journey to anyone. You'll know it by the rest you begin to feel in your body, as if something heavy finally left your shoulders. You'll recognize it in the way peace settles in your chest, the calm that tells you the fight has already been won. And you'll start to notice how the world responds differently. Doors will open without you forcing them. People who overlooked you will start noticing. What was once difficult will begin to flow, not because you are trying harder, but because you are no longer under opposition. When the curse lifts, the blessing flows. This is what freedom feels like. Not loud, not chaotic, but settled, quiet, steady, the stillness after the storm. Not because the battle never happened, but because the war is over. The courtroom is empty now. The verdict has been stamped, and you are walking out not just free but favored. And while some may try to rewrite the past, it no longer matters because your future is louder than their memory. Let them say what they want. Your life is becoming the proof. Your glow is becoming the answer. Your peace is becoming the weapon. You were never cursed. You were always chosen. There are laws in the spirit that do not bend. One of them is this: when the thief is caught, he must repay sevenfold. This isn't just poetic language. This is a spiritual principle written into the foundation of divine justice. Heaven does not ignore theft, not spiritual theft, not emotional theft, not financial theft. When what belonged to you was taken without cause, heaven took note. And now that the thief has been identified, the repayment is in motion. But here's what makes this moment different. This is not a simple return. This is a multiplied return. You are not getting back what you lost in the same size, shape, or form. You are getting it back in weight, in depth, in fullness. Because God does not just restore, He redeems. That means what left you empty is now the place where overflow begins. The wound becomes the well. The famine becomes the field. What once looked like your greatest loss becomes the launching pad for your greatest inheritance. And it's all written into law. The sevenfold return is not a suggestion. It is required. When divine justice is activated, the enemy is not simply exposed, he is stripped of rights. Every area he entered illegally must now be vacated. Every harvest he blocked must now be released. Every delay he caused must be compensated with acceleration. This is the mystery of redemption. It not only makes up for lost time, it multiplies it. You are going to start seeing time itself bend in your favor. What should have taken years will happen suddenly. What was tied up in process will come quickly. Doors that were bolted shut will swing wide without explanation. Not because you forced it, but because justice has been served. There's a shift in your atmosphere now, a lifting, a breaking, a release. You've already felt it. That strange peace, that unshakable calm, that sense that something has been decided and you don't need to wrestle anymore. That's not just emotional relief. That's the presence of spiritual enforcement because the thief was caught. And when the thief is caught, he can no longer hide. He can no longer operate in the shadows. He can no longer manipulate the timeline of your life. He has been exposed, and now he must repay sevenfold strength for every day you woke up barely holding on. Sevenfold joy for every night you cried yourself to sleep. Sevenfold peace for every storm you endured silently. Sevenfold clarity for every season of confusion. Sevenfold honor for every moment of humiliation. Sevenfold favor for every opportunity you were denied. Sevenfold abundance for every dollar stolen from you in the open or in the dark. This is what restoration looks like in the kingdom. Not a key apology, not a delayed return, and not because you demanded it, but because God decreed it. That's why you've been feeling the need to prepare not just mentally but spiritually. That stirring you feel, that's your spirit making room for what's coming. You may not have the details yet, but you can sense the delivery. Your spirit knows the season has changed, even if your calendar hasn't caught up. There's a building happening around you, a pressure, a momentum. That's because compensation always arrives with weight. It carries presence. It carries power, and it requires capacity. You are being expanded for the return, not just to hold what's coming, but to steward it. Because this time, you are not just receiving your ruling. You will rule over what once ruled you. You will walk in authority in the very areas that once brought you shame. You will lead others out of the same pit you once cried inside of. This is not just restoration for you. This is establishment. You are being planted in a new territory, not just physically, but spiritually. Your roots are going deeper now. Your discernment is sharper. Your wisdom is heavier. because the version of you that lived in lack doesn't exist anymore. You've crossed into something different. You've crossed into sevenfold return. And even if you don't see the full picture yet, trust the process. The signs are already showing up, the wrong doors closing, the right people entering, the unexpected favor, the strange peace, the moments of clarity that seem to appear out of nowhere. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Confirmations that the thief has been exposed. Confirmations that the return is in motion. Confirmations that your name is now tied to redemption and it cannot be undone. You've crossed a line the enemy never thought you would. You endured what was meant to destroy you. You stayed faithful when it made no sense. You kept your hands clean when retaliation would have been easy. And now, something irreversible has shifted. This is the place where survival ends and dominion begins. The kind of shift you are stepping into isn't emotional, it's legal, it's spiritual, it's generational. You are not just healing from what happened. You are being repositioned, relocated in the spirit, elevated in the ranks. Heaven does not forget those who endure with integrity. You didn't curse God when you lost everything. You didn't abandon your purpose when they left. You didn't sell your soul for acceptance. And that's why the court ruled in your favor. Now the enemy me is on notice. The spiritual realm has seen the judgment. The decree has been released. There's no appeal. All the order stands. Your name is tied to justice. Your case has been marked complete. And now you're going to feel what that means. The fear is breaking. The heaviness is lifting. The cycles are ending. The residue is leaving. That's what divine reversal does. It doesn't just give back what was stolen. It wipes away what was attached to the loss. It erases the torment, the confusion, the spiritual fog that once lived behind your eyes, and in its place comes clarity, stillness, and inner knowing. You are going to wake up one morning and not feel the ache anymore. You'll look back on the betrayal and feel nothing but wisdom. You'll hear their names and feel no sting, because real justice doesn't just punish darkness, it restores your light. And that light, chosen one, is starting to burn again, not because someone validated you, not because circumstances changed, but because your spirit remembers who you are. You are not a victim of injustice. You are a carrier of glory. You are not what happened to you. You are what survived it. You are not defined by what you lost. You are marked by what you were born to carry. The enemy thought if he took your joy, your money, your health, your relationships, your stability, that he would crush you. But all he did was prove how indestructible you are. All he did was trigger the courtroom of heaven to act. And now heaven has acted. You may feel the tremors before you see the shift. Small confirmations, flickers of ease, conversations that finally align, doors opening without effort. This is not luck. It's not charm. It's the presence of divine recompense. Recompense is heaven's way of declaring that pain is not the final word. It's what happens when suffering is seen, when endurance is honored, when loss is not just acknowledged but answered. And now you are receiving your answer. This will touch every area: your finances, your focus, your energy, your relationships, the way people treat you, and the way you see yourself. It all upgrades in the presence of justice. But stay alert. When light breaks out, darkness tries to pretend it still has access. You'll be tempted to question the goodness, to downplay the blessing, to sabotage the open door, but don't. This time is different. You've been refined. You've been emptied. You've been broken open and rebuilt from the inside. You don't owe your past anything. You don't owe your pain an explanation. And you certainly don't owe guilt your future. You are being crowned with clarity, That's why your thoughts feel different. That's why your energy feels untouchable. That's why even your enemies are confused. They thought they left you buried, but you've risen. This time, you won't be shaken. This time, you won't shrink to fit old rooms. This time, you'll know exactly who you are, and you'll walk like it. So let the courtroom echo one final time. Your restoration is active. Your royalty is showing, and your comeback cannot be stopped. Comment below. I choose my crown. Speak it. Own it, because no one else can carry what's been assigned to you. By now, something in your atmosphere has already shifted, not because the situation changed, but because your position did. You are no longer standing at the gate hoping for access. You've been given keys. Authority has changed hands. The tide has turned. The gates are opening not just for visitation, but for occupancy. You are not a guest. In the presence of restoration, you are an heir. And that changes everything. This moment marks more than the end of struggle. It marks the beginning of stewardship. The question is no longer, will it happen? The question now is, are you ready to carry it? Heaven is not in the business of cosmetic blessings. What's coming isn't surface level, it's structural, foundation deep, rooted in justice and anchored in alignment. You are not being blessed to impress people. You are being restored to fulfill divine purpose. That's why the process has felt so intense. Chosen one. You weren't just chosen to be restored, you were chosen to carry responsibility, to build, to govern, to lead, to preserve what God is releasing not just in your life, but in your generation. You are not stepping into wealth for comfort, you are stepping into it for legacy. You're not being restored just so you can say you made it. You are being restored because heaven intends to use your story to liberate others, to fund vision, to protect destiny, to answer prayers that others haven't even spoken yet. And that's why, now more than ever, you must move with clarity. No more hesitating, no more over-explaining, no more shrinking around people who don't recognize what God is doing in your life. You have walked through too much to turn back. You've come too far to deny the oil that's now dripping from your name. This is your activation point. You're not walking out of a storm only to sit still. You are walking into divine transfer. And that transfer includes ideas, resources, relationships, instruction, and protection. What was once denied is now assigned to you. What was once withheld is now released. And it's coming fast. You will not have to chase it. You will not have to fight for scraps. You will not have to repeat your pain to be believed. Heaven has already ruled. The gavel has already fallen. The transaction has already been approved in the unseen. All that's left is for you to come into alignment with it in the natural. That's why you feel the tension right now, not because things are going wrong, but because something divine is being delivered. Don't let this moment pass you by. You are not being stirred emotionally. You are being summoned spiritually. This message found you for a reason. It was never random. Your spirit recognized it before your mind could explain it. And when God sends confirmation like this, it's because you are standing on holy ground. You are standing where preparation meets fulfillment. So pause and receive that, not with striving, but with stillness. Heaven doesn't need your panic. It needs your posture. If this message has entered your life in a way you didn't expect, hold space for that. Let your soul respond. And know this, when heaven sends a word, it's not for entertainment, it's for movement, for response, for ignition. You've heard the word now. Carry it. And if you've been following this journey, now is the moment to stay connected, not just for another word, but to stay in step with what heaven is doing. Subscribe if you haven't, not for a platform, but for your alignment. There's more unfolding, and your spirit already knows it. Like and share this message if it mirrored something inside you. You never know who needs to hear what you just heard. And if this message watered your soul, consider watering back. Support doesn't just keep messages like this flowing. It becomes an act of alignment, an offering of agreement, a seed of faith. No pressure, no force, just the quiet understanding that when heaven speaks, honor responds. The truth is, this space isn't just a voice, it's a vessel. And vessels must be carried if they are to keep pouring. Because this isn't just for you. Others are still stuck in the middle of the silence, unsure if justice is ever coming. Others are still believing they're cursed because of how long the pain lasted. Others are still choosing bitterness over belief. But you have crossed into revelation. You've seen the edge of restoration. And now you have a choice. Keep it to yourself, or carry it forward. And carrying doesn't always mean talking. Sometimes it just means being. Walking with dignity. Living like the curse is broken. Making decisions like you are already blessed. And refusing to re-enter places that require you to pretend you are less than what heaven has already declared. This is how restoration expands, not through volume, but through visibility, through a life that reflects justice, a heart that no longer flinches at abundance, a soul that knows without needing proof that God is faithful. You are there now, so move with reverence, move with confidence, move with expectation, because your days of spiritual wandering are over. The search has ended. The word has been sent. The verdict has been rendered. The gates are opening. The mantle has dropped. Now, walk in it. There are moments in time when heaven does more than speak. It sends reinforcements. That's where you are now. This is no longer about the ruling being declared that's done. The decision is final. The evidence was sufficient. The judgment was rendered. Now comes the next phase, enforcement. The part of divine justice where angels are not just present, they are active. Because heaven never issues a verdict without sending power to enforce it. You have to understand, when you are chosen, your defense doesn't come from men. Your vindication isn't organized through human systems. It is backed by the armies of the Lord, invisible forces assigned to carry out what was written in your name. And once they move, nothing can stop them. Not time, not delay, not resistance, not even your past. This is why certain things are suddenly falling apart around those who mishandled you. It's not random. It's not karma. It's enforcement. Spiritual systems are correcting themselves. Unseen structures are rebalancing not because you spoke up, but because heaven did. You never needed to fight for yourself. Every silent moment of surrender became an instruction for angels. Every tear you shed became an arrow in the hands of divine justice. Every time you said, God, I trust you. Even when it made no sense, you gave heaven legal permission to act. And now, they're acting. Assignments are being carried out behind the scenes. What was delayed is now in motion. What was locked is now opening. What was twisted is being untangled by forces that were waiting for this moment. You don't see them, but you will feel their work. That sense of lightness in your spirit, that's them. The sudden ending of draining connections, that's them. The unexplainable favor in new spaces, that's them. The people who suddenly start remembering your name, that's them. The plans of those who harmed you, unraveling without a word from you, that's them. Because this is what heaven does when the gavel falls. It doesn't just write a verdict, it sends a response. The spiritual realm has always been more alive than the natural. You are just now starting to notice. Not because it wasn't moving before, but because now your eyes are tuned to what's always been true. You've never been alone. There were forces on your side. even in your lowest moments. You didn't feel them, but they were there. When you were about to give up, something pulled you back. When you lost hope, peace suddenly returned for no reason. When you were ready to collapse, strength came from nowhere. That was not chance. That was your divine protection team in full operation. And now, they're no longer in defense mode. They're enforcing victory. This is not the season of holding ground. This is the season of taking territory. Everything the enemy used to gain ground in your life through fear, shame, manipulation, and distraction is now being reversed. That territory is coming back under your authority. You are reclaiming not just what was stolen, but what was abandoned. Dreams you gave up on, visions you buried, promises you stopped praying for. They're returning, because heaven has sent angels to escort them back into your life. But don't expect this process to always be clean. Justice makes messes first. Be ready for it. The shift has already begun. It overturns systems. It exposes lies. It reveals what's been hidden. It doesn't ask permission to rearrange. It comes in with power and pulls everything into alignment. That's why things around you might feel unstable for a moment. Why people you thought would stay are suddenly walking away. Why routines you clung to are no longer working. Don't panic. That's not chaos. That's heaven cleaning house. You are being prepared to carry glory, and glory doesn't rest on dysfunction. The angels moving in your life are not just protecting you. They are escorting you into a new atmosphere, one that doesn't tolerate mixture, one that honors peace, one that refuses to allow half-light, half-shadow living. There is no going back. That season is over. The spiritual guards have changed. What once had access to you will no longer find open doors. The conversations you used to entertain won't fit in your spirit anymore. The compromise you used to allow will now disturb your peace. That's not you being cold, that's you being crowned. Your environment is responding to the shift in your rank. Because you are no longer trying to earn your place, you are occupying it. And heaven will not allow you to return to what it just delivered you from, not in behavior, not in relationships. That's why the divine enforcers are still moving, clearing the path, guarding the borders, making sure nothing unclean follows you into this next season. You have never been more protected than you are right now, not because life is quiet, but because heaven is loud, in motion, in purpose, in vengeance, in favor. You are not fighting anymore. You are watching the verdict take form. There is a number written in the spirit over your life right now. Completion. You've crossed a threshold that few ever reach, not because they weren't called, but because they turned back too soon. But you didn't. You stayed the course when it was dark. You kept walking when the road disappeared. You trusted when it would have made more sense to shut down. Because of that, you've arrived at a spiritual moment marked by finality. Completion doesn't mean perfection. It means fulfillment. It means that what began in tears is ending in testimony. What started as a fracture is closing as a seal. What broke you has now become the bridge. This is the hour where closure comes not through conversation, but through clarity. The need for explanations is dissolving. The desire for apologies is fading. You no longer need their validation to feel whole. Why? Because wholeness is happening from the inside out. God has settled it in the court of heaven. And now your spirit is catching up with the decision. That's why your thoughts feel different. The racing has slowed. The torment has eased. The confusion no longer carries weight. That's not just mental peace. It's the sign that a spiritual cycle has ended. You're not bound to the old anymore. And you'll know this is real because the patterns are breaking. The people who kept you tethered to an old identity no longer feel aligned. The cravings that once pulled you back into cycles now feel foreign. The wounds that used to sting so easily now feel distant, not because you forgot, but because they finally closed. This is what restoration at the soul level feels like. Not a rush of emotion, but a calm that holds its ground. Chosen one, you are walking in something unshakable. The foundation has been rebuilt. The scaffolding is coming down. You are no longer in transition. You are in establishment. And yes, there will be more to receive. Yes, there's greater ahead. But this moment is sacred because it confirms that your past no longer has authority over you. The voices that used to echo are silent. Now, the battles that used to find you can't locate you anymore. The labels they tried to stick on you don't match your current form. You've evolved. This is divine closure. And closure in the spirit brings access in the natural. The same way heaven opens windows, it also shuts doors for your protection, for your progress. Because God is not interested in blessing a version of you that no longer exists. This new season requires your true self. The healed self, the bold self, the obedient self. You are ready now, and heaven knows it. So, let the past rest. Let what died stay buried. Let the unanswered questions go unanswered. Not because you gave up, but because you've risen above the need to know. You are no longer waiting for the why. You are walking in the what now. This is the final breath of a season that lasted longer than it should have. And even though it hurt, you are not walking away empty. You are leaving with wisdom, with strength, with discernment, with oil you didn't have before. And that oil is going to carry you forward, not just into restoration, but into legacy, into places where your voice unlocks others, where your experience becomes strategy, where your pain becomes prophecy. You didn't survive for survival's sake. You endured because you were being equipped for this exact hour. So don't overlook how holy this moment is. Completion is rare. Some fight their whole lives and never taste it. But here you are, whole, awake, and available for what's next. And you didn't get here by accident. You were led here. You were carried when your legs gave out, held together by grace when everything else was falling apart. Now you know why you were never meant to stay in that valley. You were never meant to stay confused. You were never meant to live as a prisoner of memory. You were destined to walk in completion. And that word now rests over your life like a seal. So let your spirit acknowledge what's happened. Let your heart agree. Let your soul rest in it. Then type the number 999 below, not as superstition, but as a witness. 999, heaven's mark of closure. The full stop at the end of your wilderness sentence. The spiritual declaration that you have passed the test. Outlived the curse and stepped fully into restoration. Comment now. Let it speak on your behalf. The courtroom has ruled, and this chapter is closed. They never thought you'd survive what they did to you, and they certainly never expected that one day they'd have to watch you rise. But that's the mystery of divine justice. It turns private pain into public testimony, not for revenge, but for restoration, not to prove them wrong, but to prove God right. This is that moment. Not loud and vengeful, but undeniable. The ones who counted you out are now watching in silence as what they tried to take from you is restored, multiplied, and sealed under heaven's authority. Not because they repented, but because God ruled. And once heaven rules, no one can stop the enforcement of that decision. This is not about being petty. It's not about pride. It's about closure that comes with evidence. What they once said was impossible is now happening in front of their eyes, not in theory, but in reality. You are no longer the one waiting on breakthrough. You are the one becoming breakthrough for others, for your lineage, for every cycle that thought it had permission to continue. And yes, they are watching. They're watching your name recover. They're watching your doors open. They're watching the systems they tried to use against you begin to fail them, because justice is not quiet. Justice is visible. It corrects the narrative. It reverses the momentum, and it testifies to the faithfulness of God when everything else has fallen short. There are people right now having to sit with the consequences of mishandling you, not because you cursed them, but because you blessed them, not because you exposed them, but because God did. You covered them, not because you asked for payback, but because you released them. Heaven didn't forget. God is not mocked. What a person sows, they will reap. And for those who sowed dishonor into your life while reaping favor from your presence, the season of reaping has arrived. And this time, you are not the one in the storm. You are the one standing in the clearing, finally breathing again. Watching the clouds break apart as light floods the field. This is what reversal looks like, not just the restoration of things, but restoration of order, a divine reset. The scales are being recalibrated. The false narratives are collapsing. And the truth you lived, not just spoke, is rising to the surface. There is no need to explain, no need to announce. Justice announces itself. It moves through silence and shifts atmospheres. It shows up in timing that makes no sense to the mind but perfect sense to the spirit. You will witness it, and not from a place of bitterness, but from peace, because peace is the proof that restoration is real. You are not obsessing over outcomes anymore. You are not desperate for closure. You are not secretly hoping they come back and say what they should have said. You've released all of it, and in that release, you made room for glory. This is why the light feels stronger now. You are not just seeing clearer, you are carrying more light, and light always exposes what was built on shadows. That's what's happening now. Structures are failing, systems are cracking, false alignments are being revealed for what they truly are. You never had to fight them. You only had to stand still, because in stillness, heaven fights. And now, the fight has shifted not for survival, but for testimony. You will watch them lose what they used against you, not because you wished it, but because divine justice never allowed wickedness to prosper without consequence. And still, you don't gloat, you don't retaliate, you don't dance on the graves of former enemies. You stand still and let God be God. That's power, that's clarity, that's what it looks like to be crowned with dignity after a storm. Some may think this is all a coincidence, that life just turned around. But you know better. Your spirit knows what shifted. It knows what broke, what was loosed, what was released. You remember what it took to get here. You remember the nights you prayed for it, the days you begged for understanding, the hours you tried to hold yourself together. And now, you are watching the reward for a kind of faith that didn't come easy. There is no guilt in your rising, no shame in your increase, no apology in your restoration, because this is what happens when you survive without losing your soul. You gain it back in full. There are certain inheritances that belong to you, not because you earned them, but because heaven assigned them long before the betrayal, long before the loss, long before the struggle. Your name was written into a line of blessing that cannot be erased, and no amount of damage, delay, or darkness has been able to cancel what God decreed over your life. You are not stepping into something new. You are stepping back into what was always yours. For a long time, it didn't feel that way. You questioned if maybe you were the problem, if maybe you had missed the instruction, if maybe you disqualified yourself somewhere along the way. But heaven was never second-guessing you. Heaven wasn't confused about your identity. The enemy simply launched a war against your awareness of it. He didn't need to steal the promise. He only needed you to forget it existed. And for a season, it worked. The weight of rejection clouded your mind. The cycles of poverty distracted your heart. The trauma blurred your ability to discern what was real. You started to see yourself through the damage rather than through the decree, but not anymore. That veil has lifted. The confusion has broken. The inheritance is being restored, not because you are striving harder, but because the Spirit has pulled back the curtain and said, "Look again." Look again at what belongs to you. Look again at who you were always meant to be. Look again at the promise, the vision, the gift, the fire. None of it is gone. It was simply buried beneath the debris of spirit, and now the debris has cleared. You are standing in a season of visibility. The hidden is being uncovered. The trapped is being released. The blocked is being opened. This is the part of restoration they don't tell you about, the part where God doesn't just give back what was taken. He gives back what was withheld for generations. You are not just recovering what you lost. You are recovering what your bloodline forfeited, what was surrendered through fear, what was blocked by cycles, what was stolen through silence. You are the interruption, the repairer, the restorer of broken paths. This is why you couldn't fit in with what others accepted, why your soul refused to settle, why you always felt the tension, even when life looked okay on the outside. Something in your spirit knew, this isn't it. There's more. There's something that hasn't yet arrived. That something is inheritance, not just in material things, but in authority, spiritual weight, generational influence, kingdom identity. You were born to carry what others dropped, and now you are picking it up. It may not feel dramatic. In fact, it might feel quiet, subtle, but don't mistake stillness for smallness. What's happening in you right now is foundational, and heaven always builds slowly when the structure is meant to last. You are being established, and when God establishes something, He fortifies it, He seals it, He protects it. That's why you are feeling this new kind of peace, the kind that doesn't come from circumstances, but from roots, from knowing that this time, what's rising in you is not a temporary high. It's permanent. It's spiritual concrete. This is the version of you the enemy hoped would never emerge, the version that's no longer anxious, no longer easily shaken, no longer distracted by every voice or every storm, the version that knows if God said it, it must come to pass. And now, it's coming. The inheritance is flowing. The fire is returning. The clarity is solidifying. The identity is locking in, not because you prayed harder, but because the time is right. You have crossed into timing. The delay wasn't punishment. It was preservation. You weren't being ignored. You were being hidden until the moment matched the maturity. And now they match. So when the blessing arrives, it won't overwhelm you. It'll fit you. It'll feel like home, not because it's familiar, but because it was always yours. This is the part of restoration where you stop hoping and start holding, where you stop surviving and start reigning, where you stop revisiting the ruins and start building on the cleared land. And as you build, remember this: what's coming cannot be taken. It is sealed this time. The blessing is not just released, it's protected. There's a moment in every chosen one's journey when the tide turns for good. Not temporarily, not for a fleeting emotional high, but as a permanent shift in atmosphere, position, and calling. This right now is that moment. You've crossed the threshold, and this time, there's no going back. Heaven has ruled. The enemy has been silenced. The records have been cleared, and the inheritance that once felt distant is now unfolding in real time, not just spiritually, but tangibly. In your conversations, in your energy, in the way doors respond to your presence, in how your discernment sharpens without explanation. These are not mood swings. They are prophetic signals. Your spirit isn't just hopeful. It's recognizing the ground. You now walk on promised land, and when your feet step onto promised ground, everything around you must shift. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. Circumstances react to it. And the enemy who once operated in your blind spots now trembles at your awareness because you are no longer in hiding. You are no longer uncertain. You are no longer hoping to be chosen. You've accepted that you've moved from survival to sovereignty. And now that your identity has aligned, your atmosphere is catching up. You'll begin to notice favor falling in ways that feel strangely natural, not rushed, not forced, not manipulated, just right. Because favor that is assigned never has to fight to be received. It fits, it flows, and that's what you are stepping into now. Flow, not hustle, not grinding, not burnout disguised as ambition, but a holy, heaven-backed flow where your yes moves things, your no protects things, and your presence carries weight, even in silence. This is what divine justice feels like in full bloom, not just repayment, but reinstatement. Your seat has been restored, your name has been cleared, your oil has been refilled, your voice has been recentered, and most of all, your obedience has been seen. Heaven honors obedience, especially the kind that costs, the kind that makes you walk away from connections that felt good but weren't from God, the kind that makes you release dreams that were born from survival, not spirit, the kind that keeps you steady when your emotions beg to run, and because you obeyed in silence, in private, in deep, unseen places, now comes the reward. You don't need to chase anything. What's yours is now chasing you. Provision is coming not because you begged for it, but because you aligned with your true self. And your true self is magnetic to everything heaven assigned to you before you were born. This next season will not require exhaustion. It will require awareness. You'll need to discern what is for you and what simply mimics favor. You'll need to stay close to the quiet voice that brought you this far. You'll need to choose stillness even as more eyes begin to notice you, because exposure without spiritual grounding is dangerous, boom. But exposure with spiritual grounding, that's impact. That's kingdom movement. And that's what you are here for. You didn't come this far to get distracted now. You didn't overcome sickness, break chains, and reject patterns just to fit into a version of life that plays small. You've already lost too much to settle for less than fullness. That's why now is the time to be intentional. Surround yourself with voices that confirm what heaven is doing, not confuse it. Invest in the spaces that strengthen your alignment. Stay close to the oil. Stay under the flow. If this space has spoken to your spirit, hold on to it like a treasure. If it stirred something deep, share it with someone who's still trying to survive what you just came through. Subscribe so you don't lose the rhythm. There is more unfolding. And if you feel led, sow into the word that found you not out of obligation but out of alignment. Giving is never about the amount, it's about agreement. Sometimes the greatest thing you can do is quietly say, I honor what just touched me, because when you honor the flow, you stay in step with it. And this flow is sacred, not for followers, but for fulfillers, not for hype, but for holy people who recognize, I was born for this. You are one of them, so don't hesitate. Now, you don't need another confirmation. Your spirit already knows you've stepped into what others prayed for but didn't have the endurance to carry. You've become what the enemy feared would rise from the ashes. You are the proof that God still restores, still exalts, still moves with fire and mercy, so let the world see it. Let your life speak what your mouth doesn't have to. Let your posture be the message. Let your peace be the sermon. Let your increase be the answer. And as a final seal, comment below one word that captures everything this moment means to your spirit. Write, "I will obey," 3 words. A final agreement, a spiritual echo, a prophetic alignment. Because this next level won't be carried by effort, it'll be carried by obedience. And you are already walking in it. It was never just about money. What's being restored to you in this hour reaches beyond your bank account. The compensation heaven has set in motion includes something deeper, something far more sacred than finances. It's the recovery of your peace, your clarity, so your time, your voice, your confidence, your years, because when the enemy attacks, he doesn't just take one thing. He tries to leave your entire life in confusion. And when God restores, he doesn't stop at one area. He revives the whole of who you are. You are not just receiving funds. You are receiving function. You are being returned to your original design. The one who wasn't afraid to speak, the one who dreamed freely without fear of loss, the one who moved with joy and divine awareness, the one who wasn't dimming, shrinking, or apologizing, the one who didn't overthink every step but moved by the rhythm of peace. That version of you wasn't destroyed, just buried under years of disappointment, buried under other people's expectations, buried under grief you were never allowed to process. But the soil of affliction has been broken open now, and what was buried is rising again. This is resurrection in motion. You are about to feel what it's like to live from your core, not conditioned to move in alignment, not anxiety-driven, to show up as yourself, not a survival-based version of you. There is wealth in that kind of freedom, wealth that can't be counted in currency, but shows up in posture, relationships, and presence. People will begin to experience you differently, not because you are performing, but because you are no longer pretending. You are living in truth, and truth always carries a weight that demands attention. You are finally becoming the version of yourself that doesn't disappear for the comfort of others. And that version, that's the one God has been waiting to partner with all along. The spiritual inheritance being returned to you includes rest from striving, clarity and purpose, and time. Time. Yes, time. The most undervalued and irreplaceable asset of them all. All the years the locusts ate, the seasons you spent in confusion, the months wasted on people and places that drained you, heaven has counted it all, and now it's returning as redemption, not in the same form. Time doesn't go backward, but what was lost is coming forward in excess. What should have taken a decade will take a year. What felt stuck will begin to move without force. This is the nature of supernatural compensation. It doesn't just give you back the resource, it gives you back the momentum. You are being moved into position, not for status, but for purpose. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to finally live what your soul has always known was real. And here's the part many don't talk about: restoration brings confrontation. You are going to be confronted with areas where you've lived too small, where you've expected too little, where you've settled, numbed, and avoided, but not to shame you, only to free you, because where you are going, you cannot carry the beliefs that kept you in survival mode. That's why the healing is so complete. It doesn't just mend the past. It rewrites how you see the future. You will begin to expect differently. You will begin to love more boldly. You will make decisions from overflow, not fear. You will enter rooms with authority, not hesitation. Because you are not the version of you who endured, you are the version who emerged. And with that emergence comes responsibility, not pressure, just awareness. The kind of deep knowing that makes you careful with your time, intentional with your connections, and discerning with your energy. That's part of your rest, too. Wisdom not learned through books, but forged through pain. The kind of wisdom that can see a trap coming before it's set. The kind of discernment that no longer needs proof to say no. The kind of internal compass that no longer second-guesses its own direction. This is what wealth really looks like in the kingdom. It's not just financial increase, it's wholeness full, integrated, spirit-led wholeness, and you are being handed the keys to live from that place every single day. That is your inheritance. That is your compensation. That is what was always meant for you, and now it's yours to carry. This is your coronation, not the moment you are made worthy, but the moment you accept that you always were. Everything you've endured, everything you've lost, every test that seemed to break you was never about disqualification. It was about preparation, clarification. God was not asking you to perform your way into favor. He was clearing the fog so you could see who you've always been under the dust of what others did. You were never just surviving. You were being crowned. It didn't feel that way. Of course, there were seasons where it seemed like the more obedient you were, the more everything fell apart. The more you gave, the more you were taken from. The more you stood firm in righteousness, the more isolated you became. But in the unseen, something holy was being forged. Every loss became a shaping tool, every delay a deeper well, every betrayal a chiseling of the old, until all that was left was the version of you that could carry weight, not just dreams, but legacy. Not just vision, but authority. Not just a testimony, but transformation. And now heaven places the crown. Not of gold, not of jewels, but of justice. A crown forged in the fire of your journey, a crown embedded with your endurance. One that sits not on your head alone, but on your name, your atmosphere, your story. This crown can't be stolen. It isn't fragile. It's forged. It wasn't handed to you by the world. It was released by heaven the moment the verdict was made. But you couldn't wear it until your spirit was ready to carry what it signifies. Now, you are ready. This isn't just a symbolic moment, it's a spiritual commissioning. You are not being restored to go back to the life you had. You are being released into something entirely new, something original, something deeply yours. You've graduated from hoping you are chosen to walking as the chosen one. And this crown, it's not decoration. It's a mantle. One that comes with access, one that shifts environments, one that makes no sense to people who never saw what you suffered through in Sunts. But it makes perfect sense to heaven, because heaven never forgot your name. Heaven never overlooked your tears. Heaven never missed a single moment when you chose obedience over recognition, truth over comfort, righteousness over popularity. Heaven saw it all, and heaven remembered. Now, as you step into this season, it will not look like anything you've known before. You won't feel the old fear rise when doors open. You won't carry the same anxiety about being seen. You won't wonder if it's a mistake when favor finds you, because you've been tested, you've been tempered, and now you are being trusted. Trusted with visibility, trusted with influence, trusted with authority to set others free. Your story is no longer a story of survival. It is a living document of divine justice. It carries the proof that God restores in full, that no matter how deep the betrayal, how long the wait, or how strong the opposition when heaven speaks, the earth must obey. And you, yes, you are now walking in that evidence. Let this be your final internal shift. No more hiding, no more deferring. No more waiting for permission. You've already been approved. You've already been summoned. You've already been crowned. So walk, not with pride, but with holy boldness, not to prove anything, but to fulfill everything. Let your life carry the weight of the courtroom's ruling. Let your voice carry the sound of settled justice. Let your presence carry the atmosphere of restoration. The gavel fell. The case closed. The chains broke. The crown was placed. Now, go forward not as who you were, but as who you truly are crowned, called, chosen. If this word found you, it's because heaven appointed this moment, not the algorithm, not coincidence. Something in your spirit was meant to collide with this truth that you are not forgotten, not forsaken, not cursed. You are crowned. You are chosen. You have walked through the fire. You've endured what should have broken you. And now you stand, not empty, but equipped, not overlooked, but ordained. The restoration isn't coming. It has already begun. Let this message seal something in your spirit. Let it remind you that your suffering was not wasted. Your patience was not ignored. Your tears were not in vain. Heaven has ruled, and the judgment is final. If this word confirmed what you've been feeling but couldn't articulate, honor that. Like this message, share it with someone who's still in the fire you just walked through. Let them know that restoration is real. If your spirit was stirred, stay connected. Subscribe so you don't miss what heaven continues to unfold. This isn't just a single message, it's a movement of clarity, justice, and awakening for those who carry the mark of the chosen. And if this word met you in a sacred place, a deep place, and you feel led to respond, consider sowing into what you've received, not out of pressure, but as an act of alignment. Because when something shifts you, it's right to strengthen it. Finally, let your voice join the testimony. Comment below, crowned and ready. Just 3 words but they speak of a verdict accepted, an identity reclaimed, a future embraced. You are not who they said you were. You are who God always knew you would become.